right, so
yeah.
Ooh, one more person. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin, and I'm from the Adrian District Library. I'm here with Melvin, and we are going to have fun conversations. This is Melvin. Say hi.
Hi, guys. Happy that you're here.
And if you guys want to unmute yourselves, if you want, you don't have to. You guys can pop in with any types of questions you have at any point. Or if you would rather just not, unmute yourselves, you can put it in the chat. All right. Feel free to go right ahead whenever you're ready, Melvin.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say good evening to everybody. I'm so happy that each and every one of you are here. I appreciate the support. And I just want to give our audience that may not be familiar with Adrian, Michigan, a little insight. First of all, I came to Michigan, to Adrian specifically, and I see Miss Jeanette Hennigan sitting there because of the push of the NAACP. They were interested in having persons of minority descent to come in and to work at the high school, et cetera. I was fortunate enough to be offered a position there. We took that position there, and we were there for 3 years before taking a principalship in the area of Saginaw. So I just want to be sure to share that I was very grateful to have had the opportunity. I was very grateful for the insight and foresight of the NAACP and its leaders. And I know now, I think Ms. Hennigan is now the leader of that great organization. And I'm happy that she's here. And I just I had a great time there. You know, I learned a lot, met a lot of people, and allow me to offer. I know that we've had some to pass on, unfortunately, and like Brother Larry has passed on, and I think I forgot the minister's name. I'm so sorry. I'm having a senior moment here, and I know there have been several, but I do want to offer my condolences not only to the town, the village of Adrian, but to friends and family, etc. And with that said, we will get started here. Our theme, we have, I decided, because there's so many things that happen with poetry, and many times people talk about it. I wanted to talk and share this poetry through a level of themes. And the poems that I will share, I will identify each theme that we're talking about. So we'll be talking about 6 themes that we will poetically share with you this evening. And I felt it appropriate to first start with love. And there are several poems there, but there's one in particular I want to start us off with, and I do want to share with you as well. Feel free, after the reading of the poem, if you want to ask questions at that time or you want to inquire, please do so. If you'd like to wait until the end of the sharing, please do so at that time. Now, in our first theme of love, we're going to share with you Silent Screams, Love, a Recipe for Disaster, and we'll leave the last one called Speak to My Heart. So we will begin this program, and again, it's great being here. And we will talk from Silent Screams. My heart was screaming out your name as my lips remained unmovable. Pleasant memories are forever etched in my mind, incessantly ricocheting throughout my head. Suddenly, I realized that I was smiling uncontrollably, excited and chagrined simultaneously. My pulse raced within the fury of a Colorado rapid. Squinting to see as with dilated pupils, I saw nothing as my eyes remained open wide, only allowing your beauty, your beautiful reflection to permeate my subconscious as well as my conscience. Sounds were ever present, hauntingly eerie by their sheer continence. You see, they were not coming from me. Regaining consciousness, the silent screams remained. To describe silent screams as daydreaming is an affront to pure emotions. To deprive oneself of genuine passion is an affront to true love. To cheat real love is an insult to mankind. There we've shared Silent Scream. The next I will share with you is Love, a Recipe for Disaster. And I want to mix it up a little bit, not have it all flowery, but have some things that make you think. I've often been dubbed the conversationalist poet, and people say, you know, when you're doing your poetry, it sounds as if you're talking to me. So hopefully we have that effect tonight. Love, a recipe for disaster. The hurt, the pain, tears falling like winter rain. Who fanned the flame? Who hides behind the unspoken name? Love's expression, denial, denial. My heart, I will not allow you to defile. Hate is easier to embrace. No one expresses anything positive to fill the voided space. Love is a soaring eagle that remains high above the mountains. It only descends to feed on the unsuspecting. Guiltless, unrelenting, remorseless. Love, a recipe for disaster. Next, we'll have Speak to My Heart. We want to lighten this up just a little bit. We're going to read Speak to My Heart. It's a very short poem, but we want you to hear this one. Speak to my heart. No, not to me, to my heart. Speak to my heart. No, not to me, to my heart. Tough task, isn't it? Speak to my heart. No, to me, to my heart. The blood runs warm. Speak to my heart, not to me. And there you have Speak to My Heart. And again, feel free if you want to share with us. Please feel free anytime to ask questions or share. Now, our next theme is social justice. And we're all familiar with social justice and how things happen in this society. And sometimes they are not always kind to all of us, but we like to just talk to situations and persons. Our next poem is called, strangely enough, Is It? Deceit runs rampant as we lurk in the darkness of dishonesty, pretending to want truth, tranquility, and harmony, peeking from the disdain of guilt, purging fact from fiction, while forging fiction into fact, trusting no one. However, believing every utterance of fallacy spewed from that orifice known as a mouth. We amuse ourselves with manufactured facts, basking in the darkness of the sun, with shades of grandeur blocking the rays of an impending luminous light. Oops, I apologize. Truth is not really relevant, is it? Well, is it? Our next poem is near and dear to me, as they all are. And as we talk about social justice, this poem is titled Made in America. Now, I want you to hear this, just as I want you to hear the rest of it. Made in America. Aborted from the womb of Mother Africa, I labor in this humongous adoption agency known as America. It doesn't seem to matter that this vast land was inhabited before any of us knew it as we now know it. Europeans and others grudgingly denied its existence until they stumbled upon it and falsely labeled themselves as the discoverers, and now boldly refer to its original inhabitants as Native Americans. The Egyptian pyramids are over 4,000 years old. Swahilis were sailing the oceans before any man. This is evidenced by the full history being told. Made in America. Kano was and still remains one of the most popular trading places in Africa. About the year 1200, Kiowa was known as one of the most beautiful towns in the world. Its inhabitants were Swahilis and, strangely enough, Muslims. British troops attacked the Zulus with Gatling guns and other modern weaponry, significantly outnumbering them with armies that totaled tens of thousands to mere hundreds of Zulu warriors. only to leave in embarrassing defeat as the Zulu spears and first the British Army saw them in their sleep. Black skin and those that wore it were often used as target practice and were foolishly expected to stand silent and accept disrespect as hatred surrounded them like that of an Arizona cactus. Made in America, we so proudly boast, while attempting to hide whose labor the history books tells us was utilized most. Are we proud to be Americans that are looked upon as pillagers and purgers of someone else's land, sitting on our backsides while riding this wagon of success that was garnered from the sweat and tears of an unwelcome set of hands? Made in America. My country, tears of thee, sweet land of liberty, sing, land where my father died, land of pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Does this song exude American pride? Do we put a positive tag on all fathers that have died? Notwithstanding and not preempting their very significant contributions, and due to our own ineptness, on them we have lied? Does it only apply to the Pilgrim's Pride? Made in America. Made in America. Land where my fathers died. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Don't I have a place in this bloodstained land? I have shaken too many bruised, battered, calloused, and overworked hands. The Statue of Liberty asks for our tired, our poor, our huddled masses yearning to be free. I just can't comprehend why, after exiting the ship, these statements did not include my ancestors and suspiciously precludes me. Made in America. So as we talk about social justice, just wanted to kind of share that. Now, our next stanza is awareness. I've labeled this awareness because we want to, again, speak to our audience through conversation. And the first one in this segment is called Truth That Hurt. Speaking truths that hurt. It remains to be seen who really is willing to tell the truth. Pain has a lot of adjectives. Ouch, wow, oh, with deafening blood-curdling screams. Truth, on the other hand, is paralleled, though often omitted, or so it seems. Wanting to protect those whom we love from the horrible realities of life can cause excruciating pain. Failure to tell them the truth should never be sacrificed. Truth allows us to see the world through unprejudiced eyes. Rose-colored glasses often disguises lies. The initial hurt and disappointment is never a pleasant sight. Truth be told, one will rest much better as one retires for the night. Hope is enhanced by facing life's unpleasantries. It helps to keep us on our bended knees. One must not throw up his hands in despair. Life is full of unpleasant moments. God never puts more on us than we can bear. The bitter taste of anger will no doubt make its presence known. Don't despair. God still sits on the throne. It is better to know the truth than to live a lie. As long as one ignores the truth, a little piece of you continues to die. The truth defends itself. No matter how ugly or painful the situation may be, it only serves to make better people of you, and yes, of me. Speaking truth that hurts. Now, the next one in that stanza, we'd like to speak for you. I choose to be alone. I choose to be alone. Choosing to be alone does not translate to being lonely. My thoughts are clear and my insight is unclouded. My judgment is directed inwardly. I resigned me to introduce me intrinsically. The me that no one can see is the me that I admire the most. I entertain myself, not inconceivable, nor am I a reluctant host. I am the most imperfect person that I know. Intimate knowledge of oneself assures one that his or her head will always get through the door. I choose to be alone, not to escape the world and its many cruel realities. However, being alone keeps me in check, and that is all that I require of me. Don't you just love the crowd noises, the pretenders, and the fly-by-night friends and associates? I choose to be alone. Now, the next one I'd like to share with you is called When the Sun Stops Shining. And then when the sun stops shining. I'm so angry I could. The sun will not stop shining because one is angry, or will it? I strongly disagree. The sun will not stop shining because one disagrees, or will it? I do not like what you said about me. The sun will not stop shining because derogatory remarks are espoused, or will it? What else can go wrong? The sun continues to shine, or does it? If it had not been for you, the sun continues to shine, or does it? I'm from a single parent home. The sun shines even brightly, or does it? My mother is never home. The sun is blinding, or is it? I don't care. The sun burns the horizon, or does it? I quit. The sun erupts like a volcano. It still shines, or does it? When the sun stops shining. This little ditty is called Here We Go Again. And remember, we are on the stanza of awareness. For those that may have come in a little late, allow me to share with you again. We're working from 6 themes of poetry. We decided to do the theme of love, the theme of social justice. We're now working on awareness. Our next theme that's coming up is called disappointment. The 5th theme that's coming up is labeled cultural diversity. The 6th is hope. And we have a special category that sits by itself. And it's a tribute, quite honestly, to Adrian, Michigan. And I will tell you the title and the purpose of it when I get to it. But let's indulge again. And let's finish up our segment on awareness. And this particular segment, as we finish it up, speaks to a lot of situations. This one is titled, Somebody Ought To. Who and where is this infamous somebody that we so often allude to? Could it be the one staring in the mirror and look suspiciously like you? No one wants to take full responsibility to correct a wrong or to implement what is right. We simply ring old somebody's bell as we enter into an unjust fight, taking on all comers, ever ready. Or do we take flight? With never-ending excuses haunting the very soul of somebody's friend, will passing the proverbial buck ever end? Somebody is faceless, heartless, and non-committal to the end, yet somebody is quick with a cunning, lashing tongue expressing loudly and with malicious intent, as he knows no shame. I'm your friend. Just count old somebody in. Never to be found when the count reaches 10, somebody's dangerous footsteps echoes behind you like a howling winter wind, lurking hopelessly in the far shadows, unabashedly, loudly proclaiming, I wouldn't take that if I were you. This is what you ought to do. Oh, but put somebody to the test, do what you know to be right, and let somebody fight his own fight. God has already guided our paths with his eternal light. Now, our next segment, well, before we go to the next segment, now somebody ought to, and this poem are cousins. And I was inspired to write this poem because I was working with a dispute with some students, and we were trying to get the point over to them, and they just didn't seem to get it. And for some reason, a poem just popped into my head. So I have to share somebody ought to's cousin with you. It's called They Say. Have you ever been introduced to They Say? Who is this mysterious being anyway? They Say have praised heaped upon it as an icon. Strangely enough, it is never there if you're on the run. They Say is always espousing advice as it influences you to make decisions on what you should and should not sacrifice. If I were you, I would do this and I would do that. When trouble abounds, you don't know where old They Say is at. If it were me, I would not put up with this. Don't you know? I would knock somebody on the hardwood floor. They Say comes like a thief in the night, carefully avoiding its intended target while persuading you to indulge in a senseless argument and, God forbid, a needless fight. After giving into the deceitful whims of They Say, once you're in trouble, it has already left for the night. Wearily you toil and turn in despair, seeking desperately to figure out what went wrong and embarrassing to discover. They Say has left you distraught, defeated, destroyed, bruised, battered, and worse, They Say has left you all alone. We will now move to a segment I want to talk about in this poem called Disappointment. And I was inspired to write this piece, having been an ex-athlete myself, dabbled a little bit in the NFL. Don't mind saying publicly, was not very happy when I did not play 10, 15 years and make millions of dollars. And like most athletes, we kind of get weary because we're used to the crowd patting us on the back and cheering and that kind of thing. And in mentoring young athletes, it was very difficult to get them over this hurdle. And during the time of trying to help young athletes get over this hurdle, we would always ask a question. And that is what prompted this poem called, What Will You Do When the Crowd Stops Cheering? When you look into that mirror on the wall, will your life have been filled with happiness, love, family, and education? Or will you have blown it all following that spherically shaped or round object known as a ball? Is it fair to you to assume, while sitting all alone in your mental silent room, that endless amounts of money will be yours to be tossed and thrown away like a Mardi Gras to bloom? Tossed and thrown to a cheering crowd as they chant your name and play your favorite music, and they play it very loud. The crowd will only cheer for so long. What man will you see in the mirror when you arrive home? Is it the man that made the winning score, or the lonely one that incessantly meets you at the door? The crowd that cheers for you is oh so fickle, because you see, when you make a mistake, and believe me, you will, they would just as soon sell you for a dime, maybe even a nickel, or maybe they would just give you away and call it a day. Will the crowd cheer for an A in English, geometry, and even a craft? Or will they just sit and watch your failures and have themselves a good laugh? For the crowd is mean and vicious, you see. This I know. The crowd has even turned on me. The crowd loads up on the bandwagon of success, but you had better not fail. They will quickly help you to change your mental address. The mirror stares at you and asks this question with no sympathy or compassion. Is the crowd really to blame for your lackluster acclaim? And do you walk away with your head bowed and ashamed? Or do you fight in spite of all odds and fight to produce an acceptable life's report card? Please remember that the crowd is there purely for the purpose of entertainment. They are not interested in your prior and or present criminal arraignment. They see you as what they would like to be. They do not really care if you majored in metaphysics or PE. A scholar they do not expect you to be. Please do not be smitten by the masses, cheering and hollering loud. They are only participants as part of the crowd. You there, yes, it is you that I seek. The man watching you in the mirror should be humble and meek, for a boisterous man with no morals and taste will always lose and fail to recognize his own face. He falls in with the crowd, talking loud and saying nothing while playing the role of the fool, sadly neglecting the image in the mirror, subconsciously dismissing school. Please be forewarned that God's cheering is in the coming of the dawn, for the crowd's cheering are shallow and empty and only appear to be of significance, magnitude, and fun. The crowd is like a potent drug. It first gets you with the roar, then it slowly seizes your mind by its chance for more, more, more. You feed off the adrenaline, receiving an unbelievable high. You pat yourself on the back and selfishly embrace the letter I. Now drunk with fanfare and pseudo fame, you start a slow, destructive burn, sadly thinking that you are God's gift to the game, simultaneously kicking God out of the back door as you embrace the crowd's roar and they chant loudly, more, more, more. When the ball stops sailing through the air, the lights have been turned off, and the crowd has gone home, hopefully you will know that Jesus Christ has not left you all alone. What will you do when the crowd stops cheering? Last one we'll do in disappointment, then we'll move to another segment. It's titled The Silence. And as I failed on the earlier ones to tell you what inspired me to write these poems, most of the poetry that I write have to do with students that I've worked with and the pain that I've seen them go through and the disappointments that they go through and how many times they are dismissed. And quite contrary to popular belief, it had nothing to do with their socioeconomic status. It had nothing to do with their ethnic background. It all had to do with the lack of humanity, with the lack of empathy and the lack of sympathy. And so I was inspired by my students over the years. And this is called Listen to the Silence. Shh. Can you hear it? The stressful, curdling cry for happiness and peace, the pain-filled hearts of the homeless on the street. Hush. We are so confused, laughing at what is sad while crying when we should be laughing, not snarling, mean and mad. Listen to the silence. The sun slowly rises in the east as a flock of birds chirp ceaselessly as they unconsciously feast, while the cloudy atmosphere takes on the appearance of a bright, sunshiny, beautiful day as the eerie, mysterious quiet slowly creeps away. Moving fervently with good intentions, no doubt, we boldly and subconsciously shut people out. Listen to the silence. Words that are never uttered are the ones that should be audible. Hello, how are you? Have a nice day. They cost us nothing. Sadly, we are often too mean to make someone's day. Listen to the silence. The sound is deafening. The insolence is indescript. Our hearts are hardened. Heck, we have the audacity to turn up our lips. Listen to the silence. Now, our next stanza we'll come in with is cultural diversity. And I wanted to share this. I'm always inspired to talk about cultural diversity because for some reason, and I don't want to offend anybody, I know everyone is not a quote Christian, but we all believe in a supreme being of some magnitude, no matter what we say. So this is really what inspired this poem as we talk about cultural diversity, because to me, it's just very difficult to understand how human beings can pretend as if they, we, them are oblivious when it comes to understanding that everyone just wants to be happy, treated fairly, and left alone without prejudice. And so the first we thought to talk to you about was called Painted Images. Now, I'm proud to announce, just before accepting the job in Adrian, Michigan, I was on the artist board here in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was president of the Martin Luther King Committee, and they were trying to think of a title it was a free symphony orchestra tribute. And they were concerned that we weren't getting many people there, et cetera. And allow me to say, God dropped in my head to say, hey, why don't we just call it the People's Concert in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King? And dare I say, and it's a part of documented history, it was the largest turnout of that kind of concert that they've had even to this day. And I was commissioned to write a poem for that. And I'm also happy to say this poem was read on PBS. And I will share it with you now. That poem is titled Painted Images. Because to me, it was so simple. And I couldn't understand, and I still don't understand to this day, where all of the hatred continues to come from when none of us had a choice. Nobody asked any of us anything. Fertilization process took place, and here we are. So here we are with Painted Images. What hue are you? Fuchsia, orange, yellow, or green? Seems like such a silly question. You know what I mean? Only in the depths of one's soul is the truth accurately told. Foolishly, we play mind games with one another, pretending to be impressed by the glitter, allowing our minds to be tarnished while inwardly seeing others as fool's gold. Painted images. Perception enhances as well as destroys. It reigns supreme over common sense and slaps reality in the face, stumbling around in the darkness with the sun brightly shining, refusing to accept one solely due to the hue of his or her face. Man was created in the likeness of his maker, with light blown in ever so gently, never any mention of the color of the clay, just that God felt that it was a glorious, wondrous day. Painted images. Hatred runs deep and ignorance more deeply. Excuses are eminently ever present, scathing onto the horizons in full view for all to feel and to see, silently screaming, what color is the image in the window? Some smugly reply in a hate-filled rage, I don't know. Others meticulously utter, blue, purple, orange, pink, red, black, white, maybe gray. Many somberly answer themselves, what does it matter anyway? The colors are all beautiful if they are appreciated and allowed to peacefully coexist and to enjoy life day by day. Take a lesson from the trees, because you see, Through these eyes, I peer cautiously, wondering, why do we place so much emphasis on color? Are we afraid of what we might see and come to understand that he or she is more like than different from me? Different colors, we just happen to be. Take a lesson from the trees. Leaves in their autumn splendor fall aimlessly to the ground, one and another. Slowly and methodically, a second one falls, one, then another, all in an array of different but the same color. Painted images, so beautiful and colorful they are, we marvel in awe at their cumulative beauty, but only for a fleeting moment, slowly and foolishly asking that infamous, never ending question: what hue are you? Fuchsia, orange, yellow, or green? Seems like such a silly question. You know what I mean? Painted images. Now, our next one is called, get ready for this title, The Infamous Watermelon. As a boy, I heard so many snide remarks, and even as an adult, about watermelons and that kind of. And remember, this phase is on cultural diversity and the understanding, and just to kind of getting some idea about the watermelon itself. And I decided to talk about it just a little bit in the form of poetic verse. The infamous watermelon. Oh, what a misunderstood fruit. Used to make ignorant, mindless racial jokes, however, consumed by men wearing business suits. Delectable, delicious, and oh, so sweet. It pleases the palate in such a way that makes it difficult for other fruits to compete. Many of the finest restaurants in the land are honored with this unassuming presence, as it is graciously being savored by tongues, sauteed by teeth, quenching the thirst of its detractors as they swallow this delectable meat. I've often wondered why this fruit is outwardly green, while inside it is red and sometimes yellow. Think about what that could mean. Universally, it is consumed all over the land, yet some find it amusing to speak derogatorily about a particular man. The watermelon in its unassuming splendor could just be the order of the day. Many unwittingly enjoy this sweet, juicy delight. It is strange that something as simple as a fruit offers so much insight. Imagine it sitting there in the melon fields late into the night, understanding nature's darkness, but knowing God's guiding light. The infamous watermelon. And last one we'll read in that category is titled Sit Down. Now, I want you to let that marinate in your head for a minute, because it's somewhat political, but it's not political. But remember, I said I've been given the title of being a conversationalist poet, and when I'm writing poetry, I've been told many times that people feel as though they're sitting there having a conversation with me. And when I decided to write this poem, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were going back and forth and all the craziness, but nothing was being accomplished because nobody was listening. I may have been guilty myself of not really listening. So I wrote this poem called Sit Down. Until the world is prepared to have an honest conversation with its neighbor, we should all just take a seat. We've all been warned that a man that does not know his history, he would definitely repeat. Sit down and take a seat. Pontificating, posturing, and outright denial appears to be the order of our modern day. Are you embracing propaganda and selective blindness disguised as the American way? Sit down and take a seat. How dare you, one might say. Who are you to talk to me this way? I ask you, have you had an honest conversation with your neighbor today? Please do not confuse an honest conversation with one of comfort. This only exacerbates the challenges before us and exhibits resurgences of consternation. Sit down and take a seat. Boo hoo hoo, you socialist pigs, some may say. Are you honestly convinced that the first and following immigrants felt that way as they traveled the oceans, the plains, and some by train, seeking a better life and a serene refrain? Sit down and take a seat. Creating myths, legends, and telling lies are comfort for many. Is an honest conversation really that hard to have, and life's true occurrences really that hard to explain? What is the real story in the middle? Are we afraid of an honest conversation and the temporary pain it might bring? Sit down and take a seat. As we take that chair, please realize that to placate your neighbor with anything less than an honest conversation is not only an insult, but a detriment to the growth of this great society. Please be seated. Now, our next stanza is one of hope. And as we close down, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about hope. And in talking about hope, I have a very short poem for you called Disappointment Never Lasts. Frustrations, despair, anger, and sadness creeps like a thief in the night. Hold on, don't give in, and ultimately it will be all right. Our plight is not determined by man's change in his schedule, nor his naivety to understand that his decision might cause a temporary scheduling challenge for his fellow man. His is not the master's plan. Reversals occur, schedules are scrambled, and nightly one fights to appreciate the sunlight or a flickering, shimmering candle. Nothing is ever as bad as it may seem. Bouncing back from a jumbled schedule is what makes having Plan B a proactive insider's dream. Disappointments never last. And the last one in this category I'd like to read for you is called Doers, Discussers, and Fence Sitters. Again, inspired by some of my students. Doers plunge into the existing horizons that beckon their energized, aggressive nature. There is no time for ill-concerned nomenclature. Discussers dialogue about what waters they plan to tread, often regretting not achieving a life fulfilled with successes and triumphant they could have led. Fence sitters discuss the doer and serves as distraction, pontificating in a simple, pitiful tone. If it were me, I would or I would not do it this way or that, failing to realize that on others, their minds have set. Negative attitudes and mental despair firmly entrenched in their dismal existence, they will never see a brighter day. With minds fixated on the doer, they can't get out of their own way. Doers, discussers, and fence sitters. Now, we have gone through 6 genres of poetry that we're sharing with you tonight. And as I share with you, I want you to feel free to ask any questions or share. But before we do that, I have one final poem. And this really is a tribute to Adrian, Michigan, to the fight that was going on in Adrian, Michigan before I even heard of Adrian. This poem, ladies and gentlemen, was written on, and this poem is called Windows Embracing the Burning Lantern. This poem was written in 1995. And guess where I was employed? Actually, it was written, I'll tell you exactly when it was written, January 17th, 1996 at 7:24 p.m. And guess where I was employed? Adrian, Michigan. And when I got to Adrian, I was not aware when I accepted the position that Adrian was one of the Underground Railroad towns. I was not aware of the history of Miss Laura Haviland. And I just felt very strongly about writing this poem because of so much distorted history and so much hatred, and we didn't understand the placement of it. So here we go. Windows embracing the burning lanterns. Dark shadows cautiously, methodically moves through the underbrush, puking up fear caused by the sickening smell of hound dog breath, sitting eerily on the back of their raised hairs of their rope-burned necks, as they can be seen praying, Lord, deliver me, because I ain't staying. Deliriously chanting in the privacy of their minds, where is that lamp? Is it safe to knock on that door? I see one burning in the window. Suppose it's a trap, and the slave catcher has followed my scented map. As sure as I approach that door, freedom won't be in my future no more. Out of fear and uncertainty, their train jumps the track. No more do they wish to feel Massa's whip cracking across their backs, encountering numerous decisions as the tracks lead through the swamps. The dark shadows hear bump, splash, bump. Cyrus, you all right? One dark shadow quietly yells. In return, he heard the splash of an alligator's tail. Torn with grief and excruciating pain, he sighs with some relief, knowing that Cyrus has been released from a barless jail. The whimpering sounds of the hounds becomes less and less as the dark shadows wearily stop for a brief rest, but only for a flash in time, realizing that the railroad continues on down the line. Windows embracing the burning lanterns seem to have appeared from out of nowhere, far across the fields. Finally, the dark shadows begin to fully understand the direction of the railroad's wheels. The doors finally open as the lanterns continue to burn. The dark shadows observe images that causes great concerns. For you see, behind the enormous numbers of windows embracing the burning lanterns, lovingly stood guardian angels. Angels strategically placed by Christ, offering substance and care to all who entered there. Christ admonishes us that, as you do unto the least of them, you do unto me. Now, this poem was written because a lot of people didn't understand about the Underground Railroad. Is that houses that they would place these lanterns in the window, and that was a signal to tell slaves that was a safe house. Or they would have these little lanterns in their yards. And growing up in Jim Crow South, I used to abhor these little jockeys in people's yard, but I didn't know the history. And the history was those individuals were abolitionists, and the slaves that were running the trains knew they could go to those houses for safekeeping. And dare I say, I to this day, I get laughter out of some of those individuals still here in the Jim Crow South that do not themselves know the history of these lanterns and all these different things, and they have them planted there for their own racist reasons. So I had to do this tribute to the town of Adrian, to Lenawee County itself, to Laura Haviland, because of all of the hard work she did, because of allowing space and time and having humanity. So this evening, I have been very happy to share with you and for you to have me here to talk about some of my poetry. And I'm open to any questions. I see a hand up, Maya, and please feel free to ask. You have to unmute yourselves. Please feel free to ask any questions that you like. See Miss Deanna Hennigan here, and glad to have everybody. If you have questions, please unmute yourselves.
Feel free to unmute yourselves, guys, or if you're uncomfortable talking out loud, feel free to put it in the chat too, and we'll read it out loud.
Thank you, Miss Jennifer.
Thank you so much for a wonderful evening, Mr. Lords, and for your beautiful poetry. I think
Thank you.
I'll just have a technical question relating to your poems. Do you always feel the need to rhyme, or what's your view about rhyming?
I'm glad you asked that question. Most of the time I rhyme because it appeals to the younger generation, but no, I don't always rhyme. But as I shared in a few of them, as I said earlier, because I work with young people still to this day. And many times we can't get their attention, but if it sounds like a song or something of that nature, then you can get them to listen. So that's an excellent question. All of them do not rhyme, but the majority of them, yes, they do rhyme.
Thank you, a wonderful job again.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Lars, for coming back and reading the poems. I was glad I was able to get on. I was a little bit late, but I thought I think your poems are very inspiring. I enjoyed them. I was trying to jot down the names of them. But thank you for coming back to Adrian and coming on Zoom doing that. And thanks to the
First of all,
Adrian
thank you,
Library for having you.
Thank you, Ms. Deanna Hennigan. And listen, it's great seeing you. I'm happy that you're here, and it's very inspiring to see you. And I was saying to Ms. Jennifer earlier, is that it's very inspiring to see her as well, because I did share that it was because of the work that you ladies were putting in and men were putting in with the NAACP, and Adrian was open to listening, and that's how we actually met. And I want to make sure, as always, that people understand the history that has gone forth and that continues to go forth. So I really appreciate each and every one of you, and it certainly has been an inspiration for me as a person, as professionally, etc. And as far as the names of the poems, I'll be happy to share those again. And so just thank you for being here and the support.
Thank you.
Mr. Lars, I enjoyed reading your poetry. Are they all compiled in one book, or how are you presenting those?
Yes, the ones I shared tonight, two of them, well, actually 3 of them are in another book. The 97% of them came from my latest book called Mind Muscle, and then the other ones came from the book actually titled Painted Images. And what I do now is when I do Mind Muscle, and individuals that are interested in the some of the ones that came out of the older book, because it's no longer in print, I include them in here. So to answer your question, technically they are in one publication, and we share them that way. And thank you for asking. But yes, and that Mind Muscle is the latest one, and the one prior to that one was called Painted Images.
For those who would like to know, at the library, we do have a copy of Painted Images, and we also have a copy of another book he has called Reflections of Life right now. And I am currently in talks with our adult services librarian to maybe try to get your current book. So.
Okay, and also let me share with the audience as well. The reason I decided to focus on poetry tonight, because April, as we all know, is Poetry Month. However, my other publications that I have there in the library, if not, the library will get them. My latest publication I just finished is called Just an Ordinary George, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Your denial is your conscience. It's a tribute to George Floyd's family. It's a book actually about humanitarianism. It has history included, has beautiful paintings and art in there. If you, some of us are Dick Van Dyke fans, and you may be familiar with the movie The Art of Love. And in that movie where Dick is playing a professional painter, all of the paintings and all of the drawings in that movie is done by none other than a gentleman named Don Cincone. Don Cincone is an 83-year-old African-American that hailed from Elros, Louisiana. He's a Southern University graduate, and every single painting, yes ma'am, Ms. Hennigan, every single painting, every single drawing in that movie, and you know that movie is a classic. Every single one is done by Don Cincone. And I just want to share that. And the reason I share that is because Don Cincone was kind enough to allow me to use Standing on Shoulders as the cover of the book. And on the cover of this book, Don Cincone has all Rosa Parks, President Barack Obama, etc., all down the line. But what he did, he had the vision to include George Floyd in here. Now, initially, he got a lot of consternation. People saying, well, oh, why would you put George Floyd in there with all of these Black icons? And that's how I named the book. We were all in collaboration. And I said to Dunstan Coney, I said, well, here's my take. I said, this gentleman was thought of as being just an ordinary Joe, but he has changed the face of the world. So he has certainly been a force to be reckoned with, although he was not a scholar, et cetera. Unfortunately, he lost his life allegedly committing a crime, but because of the outrage of the world and the focus that his death caused, then he certainly deserves to be in there, because all of these people that are standing on, that we have on this cover, called Standing on Shoulders, shoulders that we're standing on. So, and then also in the beginning, Mr. George Perry, Uncle Selwyn, who is George Perry Floyd's uncle, wrote the foreword for the book. His name is Selwyn Jones, and he wrote the foreword for the book. So we have that one. We also have one I wrote specifically for mothers, called Mothers and Their Smen, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons. And I wrote this book, to be quite frank, I was inspired by my own mother, because so many people do not understand and receive how difficult it is for women to be given all of the pain for rearing men, but then they're constantly being told they can't raise boys. And it's like, okay, so who's rearing us then? So there are a lot of things in there. I did a survey with mothers, and I'll be very frank with you. I don't like to call people by color. A lot of times I call my quote white friends, unquote, my less melanated brothers. But we have surveys from our white moms, from our Latino moms, from African American moms, and from Asian moms. And I did a survey because as I was writing this book, I really wanted to address mothers and that kind of thing. And then nobody even knew, a few people know now, but when I came to Adrian, I was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia in 1990. I was told that I would not survive for a bone marrow if I didn't get a bone marrow transplant. They could not find a donor. In 1992, God decided he was going to let me live. So for 28 years now, I have been cancer-free of acute promyelocytic leukemia. I did not inform the people of Adrian because I didn't want anybody feeling sorry for me. I just wanted to be able to come in, do my job, and keep it rolling. So this book is called Dying on My Feet. It's an inspirational book. It talks about persevering. And the reason it's titled Dying on My Feet is because I was literally dying. Blood was leaking into my eyes. I became a hemophiliac when I shaved. I couldn't stop bleeding. It was insane. It was insane. If I bump up against something, I would get all kind of bruises and contusions. So a friend of mine, who's Dr. Larry Daniels, I was carrying some football players to get treated. I told him about what's happening to me. He technically really demanded I take a blood test at that time. And they immediately put me in the hospital, and the rest is history. I went through chemotherapy for 2 years, go out of remission, come back, go out. So finally, in August 4th, 1992, they gave me an option of I could go to hospice or go home. And I said, I'm not fixing to die. God is not ready for me. What am I going to hospice for? And as it were, the leukemia never returned, and that's been 28 years. So I wrote this book as an inspirational piece to share with people, etc. And so that is primarily the last 3-4 books I've written. There's an educational program that I've also written called Dare to Be Positive that was instituted in Shreveport, and when I went to take over in Saginaw as well. And so it's just things that we've been blessed to do and been able to do, and that's why I say all thanks to Adrian, because they had the foresight to offer me the opportunity to come in. I'd been an administrator prior to coming there. However, it opened up a lot more avenues, and I'm very grateful. Again, as I said, to sitting president, Mrs. Jeanette Hennigan, and to Ms. Deanna Hennigan. They were kind enough to be very vigilant and very caring. And to some of those individuals that have gone to sleep, unfortunately, with Brother Larry, wow, it's still, I know we all go to sleep, but I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not embarrassed to admit it as a man. It was shocking, and I just kept, man, I can't believe that. And so, But anyway, you know, I do know that people go to sleep, and I know that we all have friends and family and loved ones that go to sleep. And I just, again, want to offer my deepest condolences, not only to the village, to the town of Adrian, to the families and friends of Brother Larry, and you know, some of the other ones that I haven't seen in many years. Are there any other questions, comments? Please feel free. I know our time is about up. Ms. Jennifer?
All right, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to put them out there.
And Jennifer, if I will put in the chat,
Okay.
how they can, if they'd like to first of all, to have the names of the books again, and if they like to purchase them, I'm going to put that in the chat as well, how they can purchase the books and share. And also, I do want to share is that I still do educational consulting. I still work with quote, wayward children, administrators, etc. So I guess this is a commercial.
That's awesome.
If you can get these books at, I'm putting in here, Barnes and Noble. You can also get them on paper. I'm putting it in here, paypal.me/Brighter Futures 91. And you can also send me an email. I'll send you an invoice. And that way, to be very honest with you, when they come directly from me, they all have autographs. But when they come from, obviously from Barnes and Nobles, depending on where you get them from, they're not pre-autographed. But when you get them from a Brighter Future 91, I'm putting this in the chat, at gmail.com, it's going to be autographed. When you order it on PayPal, they'll also be autographed as well. And I like to autograph them because obviously I know some people are my friends, some people I know, and I like to put special messages there for you. Now the Just an Ordinary George is $24.99 plus with tax and shipping. There's $30.44. The poetry book is $15, and the other ones are $25. But when you go to the sites, it'll show that. And I'll also send an email to you individually if you don't mind. If you'll send your emails to me at abrighterfuture91@gmail.com, then I can contact everybody personally, and we'll put. I know our time is about up. That's why I don't want to keep holding you. That's why I'm putting it there. But we could.
I have some of your writings earlier, that when you first came to Adrian.
Okay, you sure do. Yeah. And these books, and I'm happy that you said that, because this book was debuted Mother's Day last year. Dying on My Feet debuted 3 years ago. And Mothers and Their Spin, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons, debuted last year on Mother's Day. And this book is brand new. It just debuted in October of 20. And I'm working on another one that I'm currently finishing up right now. It's a book for men working with young boys, etc. So and that's why I'm saying to the ladies of Adrian, Miss Jennifer, to Miss Deanna Hennigan, and to Miss Jeanette Hennigan, is that coming to your town and just seeing life and seeing how forward people were, and having dealt in this crazy Jim Crow South. I've worked in California, all these other places, but they were so kind and so endearing and made us feel so at home. It did inspire me even more to keep it moving in a forward direction. So I just have to say that without being condescending, is that I know people that a lot of times are from an area, you know, you are used to being there, but when other people come in, you know, it's like, okay, you know, this is pretty cool. You know, you see people doing things and making a difference. And one last thing I have to say before we get off, one of your former students, Shatranjan Greer, is at the University of Toledo. I think he's working on his doctorate. We were fortunate enough to do a program together, and we are doing a symposium at the University of Toledo on May 10th, and I'll be sending that information out as well. We're doing a symposium about diversity and racism, and we're going to have Dr. Jean Cadet from Harvard University is going to be a panelist. Dr. Asha Pillay is going to be a panelist from the University of Miami. These are all researchers, and they'll be talking about the problems that are caused with people well, oppressed people, and specifically people of color as how we are affected by systemic racism, etc. We're going to have Karen Bass, who's the Congresswoman that put forth the bill, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act 2020, HR 7120. Well, we will have Dr. Deborah Fuqua, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at United States Navy base in South Carolina. And we're also going to have Mr. Selwyn Jones, who's the uncle of George Floyd, and Dr. Hamer from University of Toledo, Dr. D'Agostino from University of Toledo, and yours truly. And it's going to be May 10th, and we'll be sending out information. So I just wanted to share with you that had I not, and that's why I keep saying, had I not come to your town, I never would have met T. I never would have met anybody from the University of Toledo. So I owe a great gratitude to these beautiful ladies sitting on this platform, because they afforded me the opportunity to come, and they have certainly made a difference in my life. So I want them to know that publicly.
Thank you.
Well, I thank you all for coming. That was super cool. I really enjoyed listening to you guys read all your poems and stuff. Thank you so much to the Hennigans for suggesting him to come and read all his poetry to us. All of this is recorded, so it will be uploaded onto our YouTube page at some point in time. So you guys can all come back and watch it later. And so thank you all for coming out.
And allow me to thank everyone that's in attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Maya Bao, she always supports everything that we do. And we met on a group called the Good Men Project. And she's very supportive. Monique, Andrea, all of you, we really appreciate each and every one of you very, very much for coming out and supporting.
All right, guys, I'm gonna have us all log off. And so thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You guys all have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.